You are now listening to the Low Hanging Fruits podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
Chop, chop, chop.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Low Hanging Fruits. I'm Lauren.
I'm Constance.
I'm Bhang. Yo, keep it
And we're bringing you a very, very special episode.
more juicy internet drama. This time,
This time it's very informational, isn't it, Bang?
yeah, this time it's the what another misstep from the lovely Gray Lady.
The Gray Lady. Oh,
The
you-
Gray Lady
Gray
is like
Lady.
the term for the New York Times.
Oh, right. Oh, sorry.
I like it.
Sorry. Yeah.
More like
That's-
the gay
that's-
lady. Hey.
Hey, that's me. Thank you.
Yeah. Weren't you just like talking
we're gonna-
about like weren't you like talking about like that gilf that was like really? Oh wait, I thought that was the edit. You know that TikTok I'm talking about?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Constance, you should explain yourself before you ask us if we know what you're talking about, because all I got was there's a TikTok.
I thought you commented on it, right? With like the young guy and like the gilf. Don't you remember?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind.
It's like a cute little video of this guy and his girlfriend, but she's like 40 years older than him.
Although I think it turned out to be fake or something.
What?
But
What the
anyways.
fuck? Dude,
know.
reality's never as cool as my fucking headspace.
Yeah, but anyways, so we went from talking about the Gray Lady to me like just reminiscing about like that one TikTok you talked about. But yeah, that's
How do you bring that up?
I don't know. It's called
How do you go-
it's called.
How do you go? No. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the guy who made the video. How do you bring that up with someone? You're like, hey, you look really old. Can you be in a video where you pretend to be my girlfriend? It's for an app. It's for clout.
No, there's a lot of video of them hanging out, so maybe they were already like friends or relatives or something,
I
and
mean, think
It's
about
weird if they're. It's weirder if they're relatives, and also pretty weird if they're friends. You know, like
it. I mean,
I'm not saying that you can't have intergenerational friendship. I just think the idea of like some like
actually,
teen
if
Instagram
they were
guy.
relatives, it'd be even more based.
Actually,
I mean, I can't exactly disagree for some reason. All right, how do we get this? Okay, we got sidetracked by that.
All right, so now that we've provoked everyone on that front, let's talk about this article. So
The
I
context,
saw
yeah.
this
The-
because a lovely man by the name of Brace Belden, who runs a very educational podcast called True Anon, posted a clipping of it, an out of context clipping of a single paragraph
The first paragraph, mind you.
on Twitter. Just the opening paragraph, and then he captioned it, "New York Times defending pedophilia," or something to that effect. That was the phrasing that he used.
for those of you
And,
listening to this who don't know who Brace Belden is,
Oh my god.
fought in Syria. He's a Maoist, and he runs a podcast about pedophilia.
Yeah,
Like-
Epstein. I think
About Epstein,
But,
yeah.
I mean, he believes in like a lot of conspiracy theories. I think he's like 9/11 truther too. He's like everything. It's like it's the Walmart of you know, I don't know what you would call it exactly. That's fear because it's. I mean,
I don't really know too much about like what other conspiracy theories he believes in, because I can only listen to them when they appear on other people's podcasts. I tried sitting down and listening to True Anon, and it's like it's a slog.
Yeah,
It's
honestly,
genuinely like it was hard to listen to.
Yeah, honestly,
Like I'm sure we are.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, I think the only episode I listened to was like the two-parter. They had the Finkelstein on, and like Finkelstein just dropped the N-word a couple of times. They had to censor it.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
No, but he was like, you know, yeah. you would, yeah. He was talking about like, you know, when he grew up and, you know, how like blatant like the racism was where he was living. He's like, you know, he used to be neighbors with like Chuck Schumer and Bernie Sanders and like about like everyone that we probably see on TV sometimes. Yeah. Anyways. So there's that. So
It's
Brace is like a special
yeah,
person.
two people podcasts are pretty bad, if I'm being completely honest.
What?
I hate the format of like two people talking to each other. That's terrible.
Yeah.
If you want to
Yeah,
listen to that, just go to a coffee shop and just sit down and just keep your ear open, because you'll get the same experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, why are you listening to podcasts? Just talk to your friends.
Yeah, but I mean,
Just why are you listening to a podcast? Just talk to a stranger.
Yeah, there's like
That's literally what that
Discord
is.
stuff. I guess
Yeah.
probably some people have work. Talk to your coworkers. Unionize.
Talk
What
to
are you doing
one
listening
person.
to this? Why would
Because
you
that's all
listen?
it is. It's a conversation between two people.
yeah, but then you're talking me when I had to like solder for like several hours a day. Like, it was a pretty. I mean, I didn't listen to Truanon or stuff like that. I usually tried to like listen to like whole history of Rome or something, and that kept me kind of sane. Because I mean, to be honest, I didn't have like anybody else near me. I was kind of like in my own little corner. Yeah, right.
I mean, I guess that is if you're
Judging
listening
anyone
to this
for I'm
podcast-
not actually judging anyone for listening to any kind of podcast.
I know.
No, I am. If you're listening to this podcast, why don't you go out and just
Yeah,
talk to real people? You could be in the podcast.
yeah. I mean, you could be doing anything else but listening to this. I mean, you could be I don't know. You could be getting bitches or what is it? That
Yeah.
What is it that other people do in their spare time? I'm not sure.
You could be sexting random e-celebs. Think about it.
Honestly, but no, seriously, I am not kidding because
Yeah.
I hate the two-person format for the podcast. Literally, text a random number on your phone. Same experience.
Yeah.
Same experience.
Mhm.
Anyway, so Brace posts this, accuses and you know what, Constance, would you please read the article? I don't
Yeah.
want to
And
poison the well too
to be
much.
fair, I will mention conflict of interest. I did happen to get into a slap fight with Brace over socialist cops at one time, and then like I might have wait, I'm gonna pull up the quote exactly. Oh yeah, he was talking to Doe, and he had like a big little like slap fight with Doe, and he's like ended up saying
You know.
his quote, yeah, sorry. Either speak plainly or don't speak at all, to which I quoted and just said, you're a fucking there plain English, and then it just devolved from there.
What? Imagine being a Maoist and just being like, hey, speak plainly or don't speak at all. And it's like, Brace,
And he was like a Maoist, and like he cited like Jean Jaurès, which is like was a French socialist from the time, and it's like to defend like socialist policing. It was like a fucking mess, and like yeah. So Brace being a little special is not that surprising. Let's just say. All right. So okay, we got.
Imagine citing fucking Jean Jaurès. What's up with that, man?
I mean, Mélenchon does it pretty regularly. Also,
Yeah,
quotes-
well, Mélenchon is not the president of France.
yeah, I know. He also quotes Robespierre. So I mean, I'm sure that you know who I'm talking about. Probably really likes Mélenchon. See
How embarrassing.
The actually existing Republic of Virtue and Labor is France. Little today you learn.
Imagine being a big Mélenchon fan. I respect a Benoit Hamon fan. He got like 2%.
Oh, okay. This is all right.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Let's
Center.
talk about the
Center.
2016 French presidential election.
All right. So let's just center. All right. So the New York Times article. So I'm gonna read. So the title is, "What's the best way to protect sex workers?" Depends on whom you ask. And then like I think that you call it the byline or something. I learned the journalist terms in French, so I don't know which is which. So bear with me. So the other header.
By the way, incredible title. It depends on who you ask. Holy shit!
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
What a useful sentence.
It reminds me of when like they would have to like re-edit the title of like stuff happening in Gaza 2 or 3 times because like the first title was like a bit too on the nose, and then they had to like keep watering it down. But yeah, all right. So the other bit that's like there are 2 competing bills in New York.
Conclusion, sex work is a land of contrasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right, so there are 2 competing bills in New York. One would punish pimps and customers, while the other would decriminalize the entire trade. And so it's highlighted by a picture of someone called T.S. Kandi. So, and quote, "Sex work saved my life," said T.S. Kandi, who supports the movement to decriminalize the trade. And then it begins. It's written by Margot Boyd-Dry, right? It was published 2 days ago. It was actually updated July 24. So I actually don't know which the update. Maybe we'll see at the end, but something was updated like a day later, probably because of this shit. So it starts off. See, and you'll understand why Brace just completely like lost his shit at the first paragraph because, So T.S. Kandi first traded sex at age 13 after she was forced out of her family home in Tennessee. To survive, she decided to lie about her age, she said, taking refuge with a group of older transgender women who became her mentors. They taught her how to support herself through sex, warning that she would have few options in the formal economy, which is often intolerant of trans people. So that's the first paragraph. That's what Brace...
And that's what Brace clipped, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'll read the second paragraph. Then we can start a bit talking, all right? So, second paragraph. Now a New Yorker, Miss Condi, a 27-year-old trans woman, has since tried to find other forms of work, but at each of the jobs she has held, including managing a gas station and working as a private investigator, she has faced some combination of discrimination, docked pay, and termination in response to her identity. So she has always ended up back in the trade. Sex work saved my life, she said. So that's the two first paragraphs.
Okay, so the rough outline, from what we can tell, just based on that first bit, right? So you've got this young woman, just based on purely on just what we've just read, right? Mm-hmm. Not getting into the rest of the article. You've got this young woman, she's trading sex, right? Mm-hmm. And she's kicked out of her house for being trans, right?
Well, she started trading sex after she was kicked out of her family.
Yes. So right there, first thing happens, parents kick her out for being trans. Could criticize the parents for, young child, dehoming their child, kicking her out, putting her on the street, making her homeless. Could criticize that. Brace chose not to do that. Nope. Skipped past the discrimination bit, which I'll get to in just a second.
Was after, yeah.
Skipped past the fucking job discrimination bit.
Taking
to the trans woman
with a group of older transgender women who became her mentors, and the word mentor here, obviously,
And he took issue with that word, and he said it's not mentoring; it's like pimping out, basically.
Oh yeah.
This is the thing about all of these fucking people who have Epstein brain or whatever. It just like rots your fucking brain and makes you incapable of like actually engaging with these issues. He looked at that and he was like, oh, clearly these people are like some sort of pedophile cabal who are victimizing a child. Whereas like what's actually happening there is you've got one group of survival sex workers who are homeless or who have experienced homelessness because they know what this girl's going through, right?
Yeah.
They understand what this girl's going through.
They were Condi before. They had to be Condi. The older trans...
Yeah. And they told her, they were like,
she's black, by the way. The Condi, she is black. Just so we also know that bit. So it's yeah. So
young black trans woman, homeless, is going to be like trading sex, and they tell her how, basically. But the way that people are cutting this is like they inducted her into sex work. Like they like groomed her, for lack of a better word. I know there's another context to that word. There's another connotation, but you guys know what I mean. Mm-hmm. That's how people are choosing to parse this. But what's interesting about that is that that intentionally takes a conspiratorial reading of the role that these trans women had. And I think that's kind of fucked up.
It is.
Yeah.
It very much is. And like, for example, like I could read like, there was like many people who just like might have taken issue with Brace's like, first tweet. In fact, the tweet was deleted. Brace deleted the tweet. Well, we actually don't know. Maybe it was Brace or the other person on the podcast. Which, interestingly enough, I heard she's had the turfy moments in the past. So, painting trans women as groomers, and I'll leave that up to discretion. So, I could read like, I'll read these 3 tweets, which are I find like just kind of amazing because it's trying to middle road it and just completely misses the point. All right, so I'll read them. So, quote, wild how badly people are misrepresenting the very simple and straightforward, it's not good to teach a 13-year-old child how to do sex work because as a child she cannot consent to sex. Second tweet, nobody is saying that this 13-year-old didn't deserve a supportive community among the marginalized or that her parents didn't fail her first. They're just saying that it is also a failure to encourage a 13-year-old to pursue survival sex work. Quote, she lied about her age, end quote. She was 13? 2 question marks? Yes, some kids can pass themselves off as older, but there's a ceiling on how much older. And also, have you seen and talked to 13-year-olds? They're very clearly not adults. It's fucking actually. Oh my god. So
this is the interesting thing about that to me is like
It
just
reveals a certain
on the
psychology.
perceiving the age thing. So we mentioned how this young woman is black, and it's an open secret the fact that oftentimes young black people are perceived as being an age that's older than their actual age,
Yeah.
and that's racism at play.
Mhm.
But that sort of reveals, sort of just peels back the curtain a little bit and reveals that it's kind of a bullshit game to be like, well, how much could you really say that this person is gonna like, to what extent could you say it's reasonable that these people mistook this person's age? And you wouldn't have to mistake it very much, right? If she's 13 and you think she's a few years older than she really is.
Well, I think it's
Well,
I think it's a game. I think it's all like so that
I think it's a rationalization of their stance is rhetorically what's going on. But
well,
just
no, it's so that people, she'll say like I'm 18. It's obviously not true, but someone who's soliciting who doesn't care, right?
Yeah, none of these people.
I think we're
Use
talking
that
about
as
with
an
respect to
excuse.
the trans women, because I think that's who they're moralizing.
Oh, I'm sure they knew. I'm sure they
Yeah.
I'm sure they knew if they were her friends, but like there's like nothing you can this is the like the punitive like mentality, right? Like if we just punish people for doing something, they'll stop doing it.
Like, and
You know?
completely decontextualized.
Well, yeah, I was
from
going to
everything.
get into that, but I just wanted to say that I think that like it wouldn't, because the appeal there is like, oh, this person, they'd be lying about their age, but you wouldn't think that you wouldn't believe a lie of like 10 years. You might believe one of like 3 or 4. And the problem with that is like when you really think about it, even if you knew, hang on, even if you knew that they were lying, right? But you thought, well, motherfucker, I swear to God, I'm going to get through this sentence. Even if you knew that they were lying, you'd get to the point where you thought, oh, well, I don't know their exact age or whatever. Maybe let's just say, because that's the assumption these people are operating on. You'd get to that point, and you'd think to yourself, all right, well, like this person, okay, I don't know that they're 13. They said that they're like 18 or 19. Maybe they're like 16 and they're just kind of lying. I just think that it's weird to like pick that battleground here. And I think Bang is absolutely right about what the impulse is. But that to me is so fucking weird to like try to fight in those shades of gray, because like, okay, so you actually suspect that they might be 16 and they're lying about their age. Well,
So fucking
I don't.
what?
This also gets into the shades of gray of like, all right, so why does the moral like quality of like having sex shift from being 17 one day to being 18 the next day? Like that situation is fucking weird to me to make that your argument.
Yeah, it's a weak
And
argument.
also, it's like presumably what they're teaching her is how to survive,
Yeah, I mean, I can read it
doesn't
again. I can
matter.
read it again.
It doesn't matter like if it doesn't matter in that context if she's like it doesn't matter what age she is, right? Like the idea that you would like restrict potentially life-saving information from this person because, she shouldn't be doing sex work, which she shouldn't have to. But like the idea that you're gonna like what's the purpose here? Like why it's based on like a pure moral level of like disgust, right? There's no like
I mean,
there's no like
it's so,
there's no thought to it. It's just
All right. Well, it's also wrong to like mug people, but like if somebody died in a mugging, would we as leftists look at that? We'd say like, oh, I'm a socialist, and yeah, it's wrong that this person got hurt, but do I not understand what the impetus was there? Do I not understand poverty and the way that it affects how you might choose certain actions? Yeah, I think it was wrong to hurt that person, but is that, first of all, that moral condemnation would not have been helpful to the person who, by the end of my sentence where I'm morally condemning them, is still going to need to feed themselves.
well, I feel there's two things going on. It's first, like, literally basic ass, like, is and ought, right? So the New York Times article is presenting an is. All right, this is like the reality that some people have to deal with, right? And then the people who read this just are like, wait, no, this can't be, like, no, and then like they just immediately they jump to like, oh, this, things ought to be this way, and like it's just it's like it's the basic, like, how to say this. It's like one of those. It definitely feels like such like uncomfortable like situations. It's one of those thought terminating cliches, and it's generalized. Doesn't matter if you're like a leftist or a communist or like a liberal or like a moderate or like a right winger. Like it shuts your brain off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I just think it's really hypocritical, because if it was, and this is one of the reasons why, and like half the people on this podcast have a Brace story for this reason, but like this is one of the reasons why I brought up Elyssa's tweet about that she finds it disgust. Yeah, exactly. That she finds it disgusting how people turn their brains off, like people on the left, when issues of like pedophilia come up, and how stupid that is. And like, yeah, 100%. And that's what Brace is doing, and that's what all these fucking people are doing. Because if it was a different issue, like if it was theft or a mugging or something, if it was a different issue,
I have the hot take. Like, it's almost like the logic that is being used here could be used to indict child soldiers. Literally. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Literally. I thought about bringing it up.
Yeah, it is. There you go. So, yeah.
Well, I thought about bringing that up to Brace, because he's been in like a war zone.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of like, there's this mentality I think a lot of people have, which is, and I think this is both because Brace is a Maoist. And like and this is I don't know very much about Brace Belden, but if he's a Maoist, and I've seen his stuff talking about like how he believes there should be police and stuff. A lot of socialists think that like socialism is like a moral system, you know?
Oh, I mean, he defended, like, in my argument with him, he was like, no, socialism is not a classless society, so that's why we're going to have cops. It's like, it's, the typical thing where you just,
yeah, the Stalinist thing.
Yeah, where, like, dictatorship, the proletariat is, like, and socialism this is a one big fucking, like, well, even in dictatorship of the proletariat, there shouldn't be, like, a fucking police. Like, so, yeah. And I mean, it's just, well, here we're talking about, because, we can analyze the sentence just like to be sure. So, right. So, to survive, comma, she decided to lie about her age, comma, she said, comma, taking refuge with a group of older transgender women who became her mentors. They taught her how to support herself through sex, comma, warning that she would have few options in the formal economy, comma, which is often intolerant of trans people. So here, like, I mean,
it's like a magic mirror type situation, because this is like one sentence. There's no way of knowing what, if anything, this dynamic actually was like.
Yeah.
But just to be honest, there's no way to know, how these people interacted and how she was treated. Maybe she was groomed. Maybe she wasn't. It's the kind of thing that I just wouldn't talk about.
Yeah, and if that was the case, like, I'm going to assume that those older transgender women had to deal with the exact same things that Candy had to deal with. So, like, at the very end, it would be like society has completely failed, and like at the worst case scenario, it's people who were grooming each other, and it's like, okay, like it's
not a scenario that like just personally, like, I just don't think about, like, if I can't reach any kind of like meaningful conclusion on an issue, I just don't think about it, because there's no point. And this is the mentality of people like Brace Belden, maybe not, but this is the mentality of people who, not just Brace, but like other people who are talking about this, who write their own story about, who they hear the vaguest sketch of a situation and write their own story about it, with like protagonists and villains and sides. And it's such a, I don't know, perverse way of looking at the world. It's a narcissistic way of looking at the world.
You could almost say that there is this tendency when you view the world as like, directed by individual bad agents, parasitic agents, that this kind of view of the social and politics is conducive to really bad shit.
I mean,
What I would say is I think that it's a very childish way of looking at problems.
It
To
is
say,
childish.
why wouldn't the New York Times condemn this? And it's like, well,
But the
I
thing
think
is,
the New York Times knows that it's writing about prostitutes and about child prostitutes, and it knows what, like, are we really fucking gonna pretend?
But
Like,
we're gonna
writers
we
for
can
the
keep
New York
reading.
Times don't know that everybody thinks that's wrong.
yeah,
Like,
like
we
if
need to
you're
be told,
you're
we need to be instructed.
it's this Hays Code mentality, right? Like you need to have like a little disclaimer that's like, by the way, our position in the New York Times is that it's wrong for children to be in what's effectively sex slavery. Like that's not like
It'd be
like
comedic to have that addendum.
it's a pointless addendum, and it really speaks to like the level of like d grasping for like some kind of moral standard that that you have to like ask for like that you're too stupid to like make your own decisions about about what I mean, like you're too stupid to like accept this basic principle.
No, yeah, everything has to be spoon fed to you. You cannot like figure things out on it. I mean, look, we can continue to read the two other paragraphs because we're talking about this, and like they did not like it's the article started out like provocative with the two like paragraphs, but then immediately, right, it goes. So that's the third paragraph, right? So after the sex work saved my life, she said, and there it goes. Shaquana Blout's perspective is different. She also entered the sex trade as a teenager, but not by choice. In Brooklyn, she was coerced into selling sex by someone who presented himself as her boyfriend and found herself drawn further into the life, working with different pimps over time. When she was 16, a date with a violent client landed her in a hospital. Later, working at a strip club, she endured racial abuse from patrons that eroded her self-esteem. It began to break me down as a person, she said. For the history of sex work, Miss Candy and Mr. Blount have been considered criminals under current New York state law. Prostitution is punishable by up to 3 months in jail and a fine of $500. Intermediaries can get up to 6 months and pimps 1 year minimum. Buying sex is illegal too. Patronizing a sex worker can put a person in jail for up to a year. Yet a once radical notion is starting to gain mainstream support. People shouldn't be criminalized for selling sex. Recently, a number of New York state laws have been implemented to expunge the records of trafficking victims like Miss Blount, who have been forced or coerced into prostitution. And over the past year, district attorneys across New York City have announced plans to stop persecuting sex workers and to vacate a number of their criminal records. But given the range of experiences within the industry, not everyone agrees on how to approach the shift. So, like, if Brace had read the first 4 paragraphs, there would have been fucking nothing, right? And maybe you would have felt some, like, sympathy.
Basic journalism, like present the sides of the issue that you're discussing.
I mean, it's stated right there that, like, the issue is that fucking literal trafficking victims get a fucking criminal records for being victims. And, like, that's the whole problem with this, with the moralism around this issue, right, is that it doesn't help the actual victims. It's
about it's like so many different laws. It's about making idiots feel better about themselves. Oh, we live in a society where like it's illegal to, you know what I mean, to do whatever. This is the what I think, like, you know what it reminds me of is what's his name? It was Franz Kafka, like the Kafkaesque bureaucracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the you have to imagine in this bureaucracy, like there are people who believe in it.
Oh yeah.
And that's the real horror, is that like is not like that most people, everyone thinks they're the person in the, they're the person trapped in the bureaucracy, but a lot of them are just the people who love it.
I mean, when the Soviet archives opened and people looked the records,
It is horrifying. Damn.
Stalin fucking believed it. Blind and sinker. He believed himself. Like Molotov believed it. Like so many of them like were like, no, we're genuine communists. We believe in it. It's like, which goes to show like the power. It is far simpler to think that like people are just lying and like they're fooling themselves, but right, to believe like it's better that than to believe that people are genuinely like this. And I've like fully like integrated their very beings into like this fucking alienation, right? That makes sense.
I think that the readiness to jump, and you see a lot of excuses for it. Like people have been saying, like, oh, obviously most trans women aren't like this, but these trans women are like pedophiles or sex traffickers or what have you.
I'm
With
not a
respect to those who took her in, and the thing about that really ticks me off is people who think of trans women that way very rarely actually say, oh, trans women, they're all terrible. Occasionally you do get one who's that honest. I almost appreciate it, but
Mhm.
they're like, oh, coincidentally, all these trans women are awful. Just by coincidence, every week I have a new trans woman to hate. And that's insane to me. That you can process that and not see how coincidental it is. So yeah, I don't know. Brace glommed onto those women specifically, which is insane. And then all of these other
and it's just for fucking clout.
kind of
Let's
like
be clear.
cloud chasing like Chapo Orbiter kind of like Twitter users
Mhm.
kind of did the exact same thing. And I've got a tweet open here that I'd like to fucking read because this was the one that really sent me over the deep end. This
Mhm.
was the point where I was like, I have to talk about this in the pod.
Mhm.
So there's a Twitter user called Comrade Luan, Luan being a reference to the King of the Hill character.
Oh.
There's a image of Luann with a vote communist sign, so it's a very funny meme. Very
Yeah.
cute.
I always thought that was like a joke.
No, it's you have to you have to remember most people do not understand jokes.
Yeah, because like vote communist. Like, if you're the type of guy who like works for like the show, you probably think that's a funny little.
Yeah, but apparently there's a whole fucking subsection of quote unquote communists, which is like, yeah, let's do this again. Let's go.
Yeah, let's
let's
no,
go.
yeah, let's do that. Why not? Yeah.
The problem
So
the problem with Bernie is that he didn't have enough of a class character.
this person wrote about this, and in some of her comments on the situation this young girl was in, she started pitching solutions for this situation. And I'm going to read these two tweets back to back. They're short 2-sentence tweets. Teach your Padawan about dumpster diving, TBH. Have that be her contribution to the collective, if there must be one. Teach her how to cook.
Writing an entire story that these people are like in a collective that they're pimping her out for sex work, which isn't implied at all.
Fan fiction.
It's completely like
fiction.
Yeah, in fact, they contrast
but
it
this
in
is
the
the
story.
no, hang on, this is the one, because this is the one that I read. Teach her how to cook, or otherwise prepare the foraged urban cornucopia to feed everyone. Just spitballing. The foraged urban cornucopia. There's so much contempt for the impoverished.
And
in
racism,
that phrase.
and fucking racism, because those trans
and
women.
Racism, yeah. Well,
I
think we know.
The trans woman that I was talking about, and the little the couple of trans women that she like was mentored with. I am ready to bet that most of them were not fucking pasty white.
Well, if you do the math, like a black girl in a urban community, probably living around a lot of other like black people. If you're homeless, you're not gonna like travel randomly to a random part of the city to like be there. You're gonna go to where like the homeless people are. If people take you in that neighborhood, if they're in the neighborhood where you where you lost your home, demographically, in terms of their income, in terms of a lot of other things, they're probably going to be similar to you. So some of those other trans women, yeah, they might have been black as well. I don't think that's.
We also need to point out, like, there was isn't there I swear last year there's like a whole thing where people kept saying like trans sex workers of color keep getting killed like at this like insanely disproportional levels, and like this motherfucker is gonna come here and just cloud chase off his like little like obsession with like Epstein. Like, go fuck yourself, stupid.
I personally would never have thought to be like, hey, listen, I know like trans, like people of color, homeless, survival sex workers, any of those groups of people, I know better than you how to deal with your situation.
Yeah.
The amount of like
I would simply I would simply deal with it. I don't know. I would
I
simply
would
get a
simply
job.
not. I would simply not do survival sex work. That's I know. But I guess I'm just built different.
Yeah. See, it's about the will. It's really about the will. You just gotta fucking like, if you have like the correct thoughts, like life will just work out that way. You never have to like do, like you never have to, like debase yourself, to survive, right? You never have to
Maybe
sell
instead
your
of
labor
sex work,
power. Like you never
they
have
should
to.
eat out of a trash can. Have you thought about that?
Oh my!
Have you
There
thought
was
about?
oh my god!
Have
There
you
was
considered eating garbage
there was a
instead?
fucking there was bang bang. There was a fucking tweet about that. It was like we should teach them
That's
to
what the Corgis
dumpster
do.
dive. There was literally a tweet being like,
Yeah, that's what I'm referencing.
oh my,
Have you considered like, I know like have you considered eating garbage because sex work is bad? And it's like
like fuck, like
eating garbage is
You
also
guys are absolutely
dangerous.
right. This is how these people process these issues. I believe the correct things, so I would do the right thing, and there would be no issue. Which
Yeah.
is not how being disadvantaged works. Like that.
it's literally the whole fucking circus juggling their fucking ideas and thinking they're clever when like like if they have to deal like 1/3 of the shit like these women have to deal with, they'd be fucking dead. I'm not kidding about that. Like how the fuck, like how can you like think these things are so fucking stupid and like
Yeah, and
and like
I've
not
been out of money before, you know? Like I've never been anything close to that, but I've been out of money before, and it's a pretty desperate feeling, you know?
yeah, and it's like
You know?
which
It doesn't, and like, yeah, I don't know, man.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's something about. I, I mean, I get you guys have already said it better than me. There's just something about this approach to political issues, casting everything as like as a moral framing, that is just childish.
yeah.
There's an anecdote that sort of a historical anecdote that I always think about when I think about this, which is this is from Julian Jackson's book France: The Dark Years. It's mentioned in the beginning, and he's discussing the sort of the political climate in the Republic before World War II, and the strikes that led to the Matignon agreements, and how there were all these lurid stories about the workers who were occupying the factories in Paris. It was a moral scandal, you know, and the French right wing, especially at the time, was very fond of like sexual and moral scandals.
Wow.
And wow, and
How surprising.
yeah, but there were like lurid stories about, you know, orgies in the factories, or about, you know, like homosexuality, especially drug use, etc. And this specific like this kind of belief really like made me realize that like you know, these kinds of things have always been like fears of certain types of people. You know, they've always been like as long as you care about this kind of like moralism, you know, like it's just a way to like that like disgust reaction, you know, is kind of a, I don't know, it's not proper for a communist, you know. I'm serious. It's
Yeah, I
not.
mean, a lot of people have their politics built around like reactions of disgust.
Yeah.
That's how people process trans issues. Is the kind of the entry question, like the guard at the entrance gate is basically like, are you viscerally disgusted by these people?
It's actually really
And
funny in a way.
like if the answer is like yes, then you stop right there. Then you're not even like engaging with the conversation. And that's where the majority of the discourse about trans people happens, is out in that realm.
Yeah, and it's like how do you make, it's all about like making trans people not disgusting for these people. You know, it's like it's about accommodating boomers basically, and
Yeah,
boomer adjacent, psychologically boomers. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
boomers a mindset. It's not like
cultural boomers.
I've seen like people who are like 20 years old and are fucking boomers, and like 70-year-old grandmas who are like, you know, they're like us almost in their way. It's kind of yeah. But you're talking about like, you know, the reaction of disgust, you know, being like a very like bad sign about like someone's politics, like how they interact with politics and like the social questions. it's really funny because the first time I like had someone like very explicitly like mention that as being like not good was fucking Destiny. how far he's fallen.
Well, I'm sure other people have had this position.
Yeah,
before
yeah,
Destiny.
but I think like I heard before, but that used to be one of his big points to be like against conservatives would be like no, I'm against like this instant like like disgust reaction, and you need to be able to like talk things out rationally, which like knowing how he is now is kind of fucking hilarious. But I'm there's a period where Destiny had some hope in him, but that is long gone.
I don't watch streamers. I'm sorry.
I know. It's good.
I try not to either.
Yeah, I know. Look, let's say it's a dark period in my life. It is. All right, so shall we continue? I can continue reading. So,
Yeah, by all means.
right. Two competing bills in Albany are in a bloody ideological battle, as an activist described it, to make the industry safer. One, the Stop Violence in the Sex Trades Act, would remove punishments for consensual workers, buyers, and people in between, like managers. Backers of this bill avoid the word pimp, which they say has racist overtones. It effectively brings the trade above board for all those involved, provided they are not committing other crimes. Another bill, the Sex Trade Survivors Justice and Equality Act, would focus on punishing customers and pimps in an attempt to strengthen current laws on sex trafficking. Put another way, the Stop Violence bill aims to legitimize workers and address what is viewed as an overreach by law enforcement in the sex trade, while the Survivors bill aims to curb exploitation of vulnerable people and to prevent New York City from becoming, as one anti-trafficking activist put it, a mecca for sex tourism.
Unfortunately, New York City has already a mecca for the most depraved type of people. So I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
podcasters.
Oh no, New York's moral character.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But it's actually, this reminds me of something that like the way like people like will, the law views pimps, like I've heard like literal story from like sex workers like explaining that like they had like a friend that like basically acted as a fucking bodyguard for them, but or like even having sex in someone else's home while you're doing sex work, that person who owns who rents the apartment or the home is considered a pimp, even he had nothing to do with it. If like he's like just your friend and he's like okay, like go be safe there. I'm gonna be out partying anyway, so it's just like so already there.
It's another case where people have an image of a pimp, like a guy in like a zoot suit with a big hat and a big cane, and this is like
really James O'Keefe. It's James O'Keefe, if anybody remembers that. Remember like the Acorn, the James O'Keefe like scandal where he just like basically nuked an organization by faking shit and just like
and so they can't like deal with like like any other like sort of like image of what that's like, right? What that life is like, what those people are like, and so you have this image of like a 1950s cop with like a revolver busting down a door, like the end of Taxi Driver,
literally. I think
and it's not true, but because it's such a deeply ingrained like image, people react, people become very defensive of their view of the world.
Mm-hmm. And also the whole like from what I know, like the whole like trafficking like angle is rather bullshit. Like you look at the numbers and you just realize, like for example, like the numbers for trafficking victims literally get inflated by people for like kids who like run away but then immediately return, and that's never corrected. Like a bunch of little shit like that, and it just.
I also brought this up when I was talking about this on Twitter. One of the things that I said was
it is a moral panic.
Trafficking stats are used to like obscure like crackdowns on sex work in and of itself, just regular sex work.
That, and also it does seem to be like you'll notice that there's a weird confluence of like super like right-wing people just go off about like trafficking, and then left-wing people who repeat the exact same points, right? And then like there's like a useful list for like what's called like moral panics. Oh god, there's actually a really good podcast. They're kind of fucking rad libs, right? But I think they do good work. I think it's called You're Wrong About, and I think they did like episodes on that, and also did episodes on like people who were like put on like sex offender like registries, and just kind of like showed like what happens. So, and like it shows that like it's just ridiculous. Like this person just like unknowingly jerked off to like a 16-year-old, like a girl who was 16-year-old on video he didn't know, and basically had his like whole life ruined. And like the laws were designed so that he literally could not live anywhere in the city, and even when he went outside in a bridge, he still had cops like going after him, and it's just like crazy shit like that. I would recommend What's It Wrong About, and there's stuff on human trafficking and that to just show like it's kind of very much overblown. And then like the actual cases of trafficking or
the human anti-trafficking laws never actually like oppose that stuff is the thing. Is that like the legal system is set up,
mm-hmm. And there was like a weird confluence of like back in the day of like feminists and like super like religious right wingers basically agreeing on like how to set those laws up, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and it's like the idea of like we can just use the state's power to do this objectively good thing, which is stopping children from being sex trafficked, but it happens through a particular process. It's mediated by the fact that like nobody really cares, about people in these positions, and everyone wants to have like their position. Everyone is like defensive of their like, I don't know, their moral whatever.
Their preferred like moral outcome. Because I mean, one of the toughest like I how to say this? I feel like it's probably tough for people to just let go on these things because it feels it's a moral failing on their part, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they can't immediately help. But in the process, what they end up doing, right, is instead of being like, sometimes the best thing to do is to like not do anything, they just have to compensate and just end up like wasting so much of their energy on like dead ends, and end up probably like if they have like an influence, it's just to reinforce the state power and just help the state crack down on people through like some, well, that's even granting that like democracy whatever and like voting dictates this stuff, but
yeah, and it's like this is a clear case of, I don't know, because it's the power structures that enable this stuff at a low level. It's like local power structures. It's lack of accountability, and I and that's reinforced by money, and that's reinforced by by capitalism and so on, obviously, and taking this big like moral stance against it just kind of reveals how. Like if you actually care about these people, like there's no like why would you criminalize it, right? Like, if you actually care about these people, why would you like make them be doing a crime?
Because everything has to be under the sphere of civil society, Bhang. Don't you understand?
Yeah.
Else something is terribly wrong.
Gesellschaft.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's also
is there anything else? Is there anything else about that young woman in the article? What more?
I mean, it's just like goes off on like talking about the bills whatever, but there's not much like for like the topic of like race and this whole take like of how like something that's like would seem like so well actually like be intellectually honest, like how it's very simple. You just need to read a few paragraphs and you see, oh okay, this is like he speared the New York Times for bragging like for supporting pedophilia, but then when you read it, they're just presenting the fact that like two people exist.
They're just presenting the opinion, the experience and opinion of the they're doing basic journalism. Yeah. This is like not understanding basic journalism and making yourself angry about it.
It's like no, like it's like it's almost, it feels that people like would feel almost like offended when someone actually does their job as a journalist, right? But then when like a journalist is like obviously like doing a hack job and it's just like obviously like just being super ideological, then they just find it funny. But there's like no in between where they're like, okay, this is like actually, it's actually trying to talk about some things, and it's like maybe a jumping off point for you to, look into it further.
Well, this is sort of the counterbalance to those when people get mad about article titles. They're like, an officer involved shooting wounds 3 or something like that. And because in a situation like that, there's I would say, I mean, obviously everything is a little ideological, but I would say there's an overuse of overly neutral language
Yeah.
to sort of like
Mm-hmm.
shift the blame as if things that people do to each other are just things that kind of happen out of the blue sky.
Yeah.
Or it's,
Um,
or it's like
and,
fire.
and
If it was
people
police
rightfully
officer
get
kills
upset
too,
about it.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. And in this situation, that's not really what's happening. It's sort of the opposite, where people are saying like, "Oh, this isn't being ideological enough, this news. Like it should be filtering more through my morals, through my standards."
Yeah, they should have they put a little asterisk every time the news describes something and then go like, and by the way, this is bad, which they basically do whenever it's like, you know, which they basically do for a lot of things, right?
Well, at length, the article makes it seem contextually pretty obvious that this is controversial.
Well, yeah, it's just like
There's no footnote that's like, having sex with kids is bad. That's not there.
Let's be honest.
But like, this is the Scorsese film thing as well, where people are like, "Why aren't you telling us what's right and what's wrong?"
Yeah.
And it's funny because the Chapo guys make fun of that all the time, and I know Brace has been on Chapo a few times. I know that they know each other.
But I mean, that's kind of like general. So I was like, oh, I think there was like a post where like, I don't know if somebody was like joking where like they were just like, writing scribbles in a book and were like, bracketing something like go see a therapist, right? It's just like it's like bracketing like a section of like a dialogue or inner thought of like a character in a book. And I think that was like a joke, but it does like very much convey that like you cannot
That's
you
a real
cannot
shadow.
That joke, women are just like that.
yeah you cannot like you cannot have ambiguous characterization. Like you need to have like always like it's almost it feels like for some people they can't enjoy literature or like any media unless there's like a couple of footnotes to be like, oh, by the way, I believe this, I believe that, and like to be sure like the author is not like disagreeing with me or maybe challenging me or maybe something like saying like I feel like a lot of these people could read like a piece of literature and think it's really good, but then they're gonna find out the author is like a fucking piece of shit. And they can be like, oh, this means that automatically disqualifies it as a piece of literature or art. And it's like, no.
Hatsune Miku wrote this New York Times article.
Huh?
Yeah, well, it's important to remember that like everything that a character does in a book or everything that everybody does is always good. It's always any depiction of anything is an endorsement of it.
Of course.
So
that's why Lolita is my favorite novel. Okay, no, we're cutting that out. We're cutting that out.
No, we're not. We're not cutting that out. I'm leaving that in there.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing that's interesting is this falls over because right now, as we're recording, there are a lot of protests in Iran, and one thing that I saw people saying is that like if you like endorse these protesters or if you like to bring up these protests, you're implicitly supporting the U.S. project of regime change in Iran.
The
implicit
because support.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
and
is
so
the same thing going on here, kind of.
Yeah.
Very same.
And it's this depiction of anything, or is always supportive of it.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, I think this comes from like a Noam Chomsky thing or something. Like the idea of like how you read, creating context.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think that's true, but I think a lot of people do this thing where they read one work of philosophy and then it defines the way they think about everything for the next 6 years. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of people were exposed to like Noam Chomsky and like the idea of like creating consent through through ideological apparatuses in the media, and it becomes everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like the New York Times article becomes becomes like the New York Times is like supporting pedophilia, like through like coded messages, right? Regardless of whether they're actually, regardless of what they're actually doing, right?
Which like, funnily, like it feels they're like doing a disservice to Chomsky, because I don't think Chomsky ever like would be like, I don't know, it's about like the actual intentions of the people in there. It's just like, there's a reason you get to say this. It's like, and also it depends. Like I think he like literally grants it, like, depending, like there's some things that like, oh, we don't really care about, and so like things can swing either way. But for certain things, there's going to be a tight control, and it's not a conscious control. It's just that's how things go.
Yeah. I don't know. I just wish people had more compassion. That's my end take. I really do. I think a lot of people just can't, like, I don't know. I'm sure Brace Belden just thought he was being like cheeky.
We probably didn't think much of it. He was just like, like
he was just like, this is relevant to like my podcast. Like it's whatever. And yeah, I don't think he's part of some kind of like conspiracy or whatever. Just that he's like incredibly stupid or anything. I really don't. I just think that like, because I don't think that because I haven't really interacted with him. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you're talking about compassion. Maybe this is why we should be working on eugenics for autistic people, because I heard they don't have much compassion.
Get the fuck out of here.
I still can't believe that discourse, honestly.
Yeah, we can leave off on a final note about that. Do you want to talk about eugenics?
I mean, like, I don't even like. Okay, so I think this started a bit before this post, but what basically happened is that someone called, a very smart ex-Dominite cockshottian called Mouthy Infidel. That's a mouthful. So Mouthy Infidel.
Is it Damonite? It's not a real thing.
Damonite.
Even that's an insult to Honorato Daman, because Daman, like Bordiga, was like part of that Italian ultra leftist scene, and they didn't. I'm sure.
Yeah, but like he
knows this, but as part of that Italian ultra leftist scene, they didn't really want to be like an ism,
Yeah, I know. And it's just like really funny that like this guy like was like, I think like a year and a half ago was writing about like dialectical centralism, and now he's just like this fucking shit lib who like decides to like start discourse about eugenics on Twitter. It's just really funny.
I mean, this is just the proof of the negative of what De Boer tried to say in Society of the Spectacle, where he was like they're trying to create critical theory as something which is like a structured approach to philosophy that could not be subverted, and it was just subverted. It just does.
Right, so
even left-wing communism kind of has that, which is a shame. But we were never better than that.
Right, let me get it. Yeah, all right. So basically, fuck. So he said like, fuck. I need to get this shit because it's right here. Because I don't want to slander. I don't want to fucking slander him. Oh wait. Fuck. Okay. Wait. No. I almost got it. I think I just need to look through my posts.
This has been going on for some time now.
Oh, it's been going on, but like the mouthy thing, definitely like he like jumped in on like probably something that was like way smaller, and then post from a friend of mine got a lot of traction because it was pretty fucking funny. Wait, let me get this. I want to read it in full. Where the fuck is it? Come on, where is it? Oh, right. Right, so the interaction, right? Mouthy Infidel says, quote, "We shouldn't cure severe autism," end quote, "is seriously one of the stupidest fucking takes I could possibly imagine." And then replying was my friend here, Emily, saying, "Curing autism is just code for finding a way to identify and eliminate autists before they're born, lol. Like, this argument is always just eugenics. Nobody who talks about the curing autism ever ultimately means anything else." And what happened was he replied the curing autism is just code for
citation?
yeah. So Emily said curing autism is just code for finding a way to identify and eliminate autists before they're born, and he replies, "That sounds like a very bold empirical claim. Do you have any evidence?" And so Emily just screen caps that, cuts off the bit, right, where he's doing the take, and just tweets it out. And now it's like 1.5k likes. I think it's because Doe retweeted it and I did, and yeah, it was really funny. And then like yesterday, he got like really pissed. He was like how you cut the context where you claim nobody ever talks about curing autism without intending it as a call for eugenics, which is widely empirical claim that you have no evidence for. That was the point. And it's just it goes off like the point is that
you mean someone with the handle infidel has a bad understanding of empirical evidence and argumentation? Holy shit.
Yeah. And I mean, by the end, it was like, the point is simply this: calling for eugenics and calling for a cure for autism are conceptually very distinct things. If you want to claim that everybody, or even the most people who call for the second thing, are also claiming for first, that's a claim that requires evidence. It just goes on and on. He's just been fucking mauling ever since, because he got like dragged on Twitter for being a fucking idiot. So that was really funny. And then like, I guess now like
everybody just said no, it doesn't. Thanos snap.
Basically. But I mean, I'm expecting Destiny weighing in on discourse today. I'm expecting that. It's gonna be really fun. And just like, it's just been either like talking about like curing transness in the womb or autism or like anything. So a lot of people are just like basically showing that like eugenics never really went away. It was just like kind of like airbrushed because, you know, it was unfortunately like very popular around the whole world, and you know, Nazism kind of fucking ruined that. But maybe if it's been like long enough that we can just have serious conversations about the Rassenhygiene.
Yeah.
But I made it like a little post where maybe we can end on that, which is really funny because I think like a week or two ago I found like a interesting little thing where is talking about socialist eugenics, and that made me think quite a lot, because it was like framed as as an extension of like the idea of a like rationally planning society. So I guess I said, well, there's this. Today I posted, so the sad hilarity of eugenics nerd is that even if you grant them the most generous interpretation possible, the whole thing bogs down once you ask how society is going to manage it all. Of course, they have the correct ideas and won't bother explaining what happens to their base eugenics once they aren't personally overseeing it or someone else takes charge. And that's granting that they aren't huge pieces of shit in the first place. It reveals that they view the state as a class neutral and a vehicle for their doctrine moral utilitarianism. For them, what's needed are people with the correct ideas to wield state power to better society. Just a matter of what's empirically correct. In that sense, you won't be surprised at all the socialists and communists who believe in this crap under the notion of eugenics being an extension of the idea of a rationally planned society. Their brain rot goes deep. And then I just post a funny picture of Katsky as a Joker because I attached like excerpts from an article, and it's like, when the Rassenhygiene is sus. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, what I did cite is like, yeah, I mean, Kelsey, well, I can read it. Kelsey shared the most eugenicists. Kelsey, oh my god, my troll is right.
Average German.
Kelsey shared with most eugenicists the conviction that a rational control of human reproduction would counter present degradation and foster biological progress. Since many eugenicists base their views on Weissmann's theory of hard heredity, it is surprising to find Kelsey as a neo-Lamarckian embracing their ideas. And it just... In Vermischen, Kelsey devoted an entire chapter to Rassenhygiene, or eugenics, expanding on the ideas he had articulated in a review of Schallenmayer almost 20 years earlier. He still regarded degradation as degeneration as a pressing problem caused by two factors: one, poor conditions of life in capitalist society, and two, the increasing elimination of the struggle for existence, permitting the weak and sick to reproduce. Socialism is an integral component of Kautsky's eugenical program, since it will banish the miserable conditions that stymie progress. When we consider that all this time he was basing his biological evolutionary theory on the influence of environmental conditions, we recognize that for Kautsky, socialism would promote the further evolution of the human species. The second point, though, would only be exacerbated in socialist society. The second point being the increasing elimination of the struggle for existence, permitting the weak and sick people to reproduce. And then it's like, however, the detrimental effect of reduced competition could be countered by replacing a natural selection with artificial selection. Kautsky expressed tremendous faith in the rationality of each member of socialist society. I mean, we're still there.
One thing that's really interesting about this particular dialogue is, the Scopes monkey trial.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The prosecution for that trial, the people who said you shouldn't have teach evolution, was William Jennings Bryan, who's a very well-known progressive and such.
Yeah.
And the reason Bryan argued for the prosecution was because, or one of the reasons why people, especially in the 20s and stuff, opposed evolution was not because they were idiot Bible thumpers. Okay, it's because with Darwinism, which had been turned into an ideology by the end of the 19th or early 20th century, there came a way of like a scientific grasping of like control of the race, and a control of ethnic genetic hygiene and all that nonsense.
What's in German, the Rasshygiene, probably, but yeah, it's just racial hygiene, right? Because I think in French, I remember hearing about eugenic movements in France. That it's always framed as some collective hygienic mission.
Yeah.
And always first frame as voluntary until it's not voluntary. So
yeah,
that should inform people when they're like, oh, but we should just let people voluntarily just figure out if they want to be autistic or not, or talking about.
It's very funny that you should bring up until it's not voluntary, because I saw earlier this morning, as this discourse was developing over the past 8 to 12 hours, or I should say expanding, I saw people starting to say well, we should abort autistic babies and things like that. And then this is exactly,
Emily,
that's exactly what you're talking about.
Emily told me
that's just old school eugenics.
Yeah, Emily told me that in DMs also this morning, which is why are these people so cowardly? Anybody with a fucking brain knows that what their argument is going to lead to is fucking selective abortions, but they can't own up to it. The only people who own up to it are fascists, which should not the people are just finally in their quest for being the best logic bros around are just going to embrace eugenics of not even the soft eugenics where we're still pretending it's about humanitarian concerns. It's just going to be okay, we just got to engineer the human race to not be
even the cool kind of fascism.
Yeah. They're so fucking lame, They're really lame. They can't even they can't have, I don't know. To be honest, I don't really know what would count as cool fascism, but I can imagine it. It's definitely not this fucking suck them shit. It's the lamest form of fascism, being a social democrat. You don't have fucking convictions. It's really pathetic. It's low beta energy.
True.
Really.
I don't know. It's yeah. It's a lot of this opposition to this stuff is a lot of opposition to. I mean, it's also just wrong. I don't know. There aren't it's just not how. It's not even how genetics works. It was funny. There was a renaissance of this stuff with when they charted the human genome, and in the early 2000s, there was this whole genetics moment. Where they were well, everything you are is contained within your genes. The Richard Dawkins came up with memes. Memes are so funny. Dawkins' ideas of memes. Dawkins was a geneticist. And so he thought, well, what if ideas work like genes? And it's entirely an argument by analogy. There's no reason to believe that it's true. It's just ideas are kind of genes. And it's not even how genes work because of epigenetic. know.
Yeah, and epigenetics of like, well, no, I think I've heard like people like bring it up as like actually this proves eugenics was correct, but we just gotta like really care about the environment and you know.
Ideas are like genes in that I had a lot of them in the closet.
Mm.
Oh my god, it's horrible. Really. So we're at that. So Twitter has just become like either we're talking about like eugenics for either like the neurodivergent, or we're talking about like whether if like uppity trans women get to do like bathtub estrogen. If and it's just I don't know. It's really great. But I mean, actually, I will concede this. I will concede this to loop back around the start. I will concede to Gami. This was actually pretty based to go against Destiny about that. Actually, I'm fairly sure like every trans woman like there wasn't a complete cuck to Destiny where it was like, no, this is stupid. It's mostly financial interest because every fucking trans girl is gonna like any trans person at all is gonna know that fucking HRT is so fucking expensive, especially in the States. So like if you can get that for like 1/3 the fucking price, it's fucking life saving. And that's assuming that you can even have access to it. But you know, think about like people in the UK where it's like 2 years waiting lists. And think about like trans children, like you know, teens.
Whole thing is just it's just screwed up. It's the irrepressible cruelty of a society just so self-assured of its own righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yet like everybody is like by purpose like atomized, but then we just go on about like you know that we have some general morality that like is just springs forth some fucking somewhere, and you know it's just doesn't seem to be fucking working out for us, shockingly.
Social atomization. My eyes pop out of my head and my tongue rolls out like a red carpet. Auga.
Oh my god.
Based.
Oh my god. Yeah, what's that like? I think there's like that meme about like at the some atomizing machine where you just throw stuff in and it just disintegrates. What the fuck was that about? I've seen 2 people use it.
It's the Star Trek teleporter, but for society.
Oh. Yeah, I wish.
So yeah. Or do you have anything else to say? Or are we just gonna kind of round up?
I really don't.
I think
Yeah.
I think that's where we lay it to rest.
All right.
Yeah, and it's gonna be
You want to stop recording?
yeah, right.
All right. Good day, everyone.
Good
Wait,
day.
hold on. Before
Yep.
you leave. So I talked with Frank this morning.
Yeah.
And he said he was down in 2 weeks to do an episode on Marx's dissertation,
Oh shit.
the declination of the atom.
Oh fuck.
So if you want to be a part of that, you should probably read.
Yeah. Okay. Is
gotta
there
reread
anything?
that.
Is there anything else I should read too? Like
I'm gonna look at like some of like Epicurean philosophy in a little bit, but I'm not really.
I'm actually like curious because well, it's more like the Hegelian stuff. I don't know if there's like Hegelian undertones in that dissertation or not, or the way he talks.
I mean,
about
it's German philosophy produced in the 1830s. It's got Hegelian undertones, my guy.
Yeah, I guess Frank can explain, but like if he has something I should read or something, or like even excerpts, that'd be fun. But,
Yeah.
I'll get to it.
So like obviously you don't like need to do the reading to be a part of it or whatever, but
No, I want to do
You know.
reading anyways. Let's go.
I was talking like Cherry.
Oh, right.
Oh.
Yeah, like if you want to be part of that or something.
I have no idea what we're talking about right now.
Marx's dissertation on the difference of nature
I mean,
in nature
the different-
between Epicurus and Democritus. Yeah.
I was about
Yeah.
to say, like, I just get carried by you guys.
It's about basically it's about, materialism and dialectical materialism and stuff. That's really
A lot of it I might not really follow, if I'm being completely honest.
yeah, that's why I got a
No.
guy who's a Hegelian philosopher
Yeah.
to help
Oh.
explain it.
Well, that's pretty
Me
fucking
neither.
dumb.
I read the first part, which is like an overview, and I mean it was like kind of digestible, but I think like the next part is going to be less so. But oh yeah, I have like passing familiarity with Epicurus. That's about it.
I want to do one episode that's just completely incomprehensible.
Yeah, perfect. That'd be good.
Because it's like we got to talk about like why the atom declines, the declination of the atom. Like it's just I think the most important piece, because it's about like how the internal structure of a thing is like leads to its necessary behavior, you know. And the goal of as far as I can tell is to show that existence must exist out of itself, and I do not understand that the logical argument relating to that. So I am taking over this podcast to follow my own particularities.
All right, well that sounds good.
If you want
I
to
like
be part of that,
particularity.
Yeah.
just wanted to let you know.
Or it can be a stunned bystander
Sure, yeah.
when you listen to the actual episode, and you can just like your eyes like are gonna pop out awooga like I'm not Hegelian. Yeah.
That's just the result.
Yep, that's what happens. You read.
I need to keep studying Hegel.
I wouldn't even know where to start. And
I was doing the half-hour Hegel videos.
Oh shit! Yeah. I tried to
Gregory
watch some
Stadler.
of that. Yeah.
I watched like 30 hours of that, and I got like to like midway through the opening.
My God, that's hardcore. All
It's
right.
hardcore.
I haven't stopped recording actually. Wait, so we should say goodbye at the very least so we can edit back. All right.
Oh, you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just
yes.
thought
All right,
because we
yeah.
got
We'll meet again. Goodbye.
awesome sunny day. Goodbye.